All right. This is a talk I've been wanting to do for a while. I was tempted to do it last year. I chickened out and I did it at my Back to Base squad event a month or so ago. And it was really interesting and lots of good feedback. So I want to see what you think as well. And thanks very much to Mickey for pitching for me this morning. I was at a customer meeting this morning. Yeah, well, that's right. So we can blame you if it doesn't live up to expectations. I think it was pitched as design is a dirty word, but this is a conversation. Is design a dirty word? And I will get to why I think it is or can be a dirty word. So, yeah, it's going to be interactive. So first I wanted to ask, how many people here consider themselves to be designers? Could you put your hands up, please? And how many not designers? Okay, good to know. Pardon?
I think there's quite a few people who are neither.
Right.
Designer or no designer.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. There was a lot less people that put their hands up for the not designer than the inverse of who put their hands up for designer. I am a design consultant for Telstra Purple, and who's heard of Telstra Purple? You've actually heard of Telstra. Okay, so proportion. So this is where it wouldn't be a design talk without some whiteboarding. So what would you think a design consultant at Telstra Purple does? But particularly for people that don't know what Telstra Purple is. What do you think of design? Shout it out. Don't be shy.
Lots of meetings.
Lots of meetings. Okay, that's an interesting one.
Stakeholder engagement.
Thank you.
Big picture thinking.
Sorry?
Big picture.
Stakeholder engagement. Let me catch up here. Big picture. Yes. Thank you.
Filtering a lot of ideas.
Oh, slow down. Okay. Talking to customers. That's not important to be able to read this, but, well, maybe it is. Sorry. After talking to customers, what was it? Discovery. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, can't spell. Prettying decks. Yeah, and I don't know if you think my deck is pretty, but oh, and I forgot. Do we do this? Do we do these animations? That's the only one I've got in. That's the only transition I've got in this deck. So don't worry, there's no more. Prettying decks, yes. Critiques. Interesting. Yes, I like that. Which column I put that in? I think I put in here. Critique. I've forgotten how to spell. Is that with a Q? Critique. General critiquing or managing expectations? Oh, I think I needed. Sorry, hang on, slow down. Managing I'm just gonna. What was the last one? Prioritization. Mm-hmm. All right. Empathizing, lovely. All right. So let's stop there. That's illustrated the point. When I mentioned I did this exercise with my squad a month ago or so. This is my squad. There's about 40 or 50 of us in the squad. We're a digital delivery squad. We usually build apps, and whether it's Power Apps, custom web apps or mobile apps. And this column was full. So number one, and I got it from two different people, was pretty pictures. What else? I've got a list. And I'll move on. So, and as to what designers do, in terms of what my squad said, pretty pictures, UX design, flows, decks, prettying them up, Figma, UI design, logos, branding, design systems. That was all this column here. And all of you get the first column because a lot of you are designers, aren't you? So that's really interesting difference actually. And I had wireframes and Miro in the middle, which is so the strategy on the left we've got here, and research what was the talk earlier? I forgot the name. Brandon, yes, he was talking about Askable and whether, what are we? Do we researchers or are we designers? So it's kind of research and discovery here and understanding stakeholder engagement. Whereas this column here is visual aspect, visual design. There was logos, there was branding. What else have I got here? Journey maps. We do design systems. We do a whole lot of consulting for customers, and some of us are a bit, I'd like myself and do a bit of dev and even a bit of BA, but you could call this BA too, right? But it's with a design lens, I would say. So, but what do designers do? They do a whole lot of things. As you can see here, I just Googled some word maps, and these are some of the things that came up. We do so much beyond just pretty pictures, but we've got the same problem with our salespeople. They think we just do pretty pictures, basically. And I had an interesting conversation earlier about a conference attendee here who's talking with the customer and saying that she did design, and the customer said, "Oh, we don't need design. We've already done the pretty things." But then when she explained that it was problem solving and understanding, like Alessio said earlier, actually we do need that. Everyone needs problem solving. Everyone needs to understand the requirements, and particularly the users as well. So what is design? Design can mean so many things. I've always liked the definition that design is doing something with intent. But example with my squad, they're developers, they design code bases, they design architecture systems. We've got designers designing, well, you can even say architects design things, engineers design things. So you can probably see where I'm going with, is design a dirty word? How many of you would say that you've designed something? You put your hands up. I'm guessing it's probably virtually everyone. On the Telstra Purple website, it says our design, and this is a definition of design that I quite liked. Our design experts will help you navigate the process of unpacking the needs of your business, employees and customers to deliver clarity and direction and form what we build together. So marketing spiel, a bit wordy perhaps, but it says what we do really. But the word design, I've got a colleague who doesn't do any pretty, well, he does nice diagrams, but he doesn't do any of the visual design, and I should fill this in here. Visual design, if I can spell visual design, UI design. He doesn't do any of that. And maybe sometimes a bit of imposter syndrome he'd mention, but it's designers doing something with intent, isn't it? And particularly doing something for humans, thinking about the humans and empathizing and understanding and problem solving and research. So I've always liked this diagram. I'm not in a good place for explaining what designers bring to a project. So in our squad, for example, they understand the technology and they certainly make their best efforts to understand the business. But we designers, we also understand that, right? We need to understand the technology that we're designing for. We need to understand the business, but importantly, we also need to understand the users so that we can actually design for their context, design something that's relevant and meaningful and allows them to get their job done, whatever that may be for using whatever we're designing. And yeah, so where was I at? Yeah. Done a lot of design-led engagements recently where we do exactly this and bring that special something to the project that non-designers can't bring to the project. So, well, hopefully you can see why I think that design is a dirty word so far. It's not everything, it's not representative of everything that we bring to a project or the value particularly. I think going back to this diagram, yeah, the value is in the middle, obviously, of the Venn diagram. And why? Well, I know we've seen a bit of decline in demand for design, and partly it's because people think we do pretty pictures. Our salespeople think that, our devs do as well, when we do a lot more than that. So is it the word that's the problem? People just think of pretty pictures when they hear the word design. It's not a dirty word for all of us. I think it was Alessio from CBUS was saying how, you know, we're designers, we love solving problems. Maybe we should be called problem solvers. I think that's a lot of what we do. Understanding, we have to understand, the users have to understand the business context, the problem, to be able to solve for the problems. And then we bring that to life by visualizing that often, or we do at least in our space, but that can be in many forms. It might be a process or a business flow, which we've been doing a lot of recently as well. And we do have gun designers as well in our team, but it's not all of us, as I mentioned before. Some of us don't even really do visual design using some of the graphic design tools. So am I even a designer? Now, Pedro, if you're in here before, I'd say he looks like a real designer. I've got my boots on and not even tucked in because as rain, they're tucked in, wearing them because they're raining. I did civil engineering. I drink beer. I surf. I did a co-pilot search on a stereotypical UX designer, and it was non-white person with glasses and a beanie and trendy clothing. I'm none of those really. And yeah, so imposter syndrome, definitely. I work for a project management company. Yeah, I should have a tweed jacket on perhaps, although it's interesting seeing, I don't feel so out of place actually today, but that's good. So, what are some alternative words? I mean, yeah, like the example before of if you get a designer, oh, we've already got the design done. Why are we not getting you know, this first column here? Why does everyone think of that? Is maybe design is a dirty word? And what were some of the other examples we had recently? I can't remember the example that I had in the squad, but what do you think is maybe a better word?
Being design is a misunderstood word.
Well, I know, well, it's a different audience here today. But this is not, this is...
And the problem is there's too many actual skill sets that complement what we're calling designers. There's too much prioritisation. People that are just UI designers. And that is a concept. Pretty pictures, they create.
It makes sense.
Makes sense. Design's perfectly clear. Too much sort of mud in the water to really understand what design means. Design, the word is not a problem. We've got too many people, too many capabilities trying to be designers.
Interesting. Very interesting. How about, you know, developers designing a code base or an architect designing the system, you know, architecture of the system?
But I argue in their context, their version of design, like it is still a solution designer. It's not as ambiguous.
What's a word that better talks to all of this? I don't think design talks to this very well at all. Doing discovery, problem solving, critiquing, research. I mean, we're doing all of that to inform a design ultimately. But in itself, I would argue it's not design, and I'd argue that it's almost underselling us. And I've suggested calling us like business consultants, but you know, we're not the big four. We do the proper strategy, and I've got you know, the full depth. And well, I could say more, but I won't say more there. But yeah, so yeah.
I think there's plenty of people that might call themselves like facilitators that facilitate lots of that's happening on the left here. They may not do as much.
Which is fine, and yeah, I mean, we're coming from a consulting background, or context, and got customers. So, you know, the question for me is saying, we're a facilitator. Do you need a facilitator, or what's a appealing word to them that is actually going to make sense and get them to want our services? Because it's so important. And why is it dropping off? You know, It's the most important thing really, to understand the problem, understand the users, and, you know, it gets cut. But it doesn't make it's, well, we're biased. I'm biased. But it's super important.
I think sometimes we spend, when you had the Venn diagram before, we spend a lot of time in that desirability rather than feasibility and the viability. And so, yes, we should be in that sweet spot, but if we're not, if we're at the desirability, it can be hard to make it tangible for the people that are very much in the business of the tech. So if we were landing right in the sweet spot, then we are doing our job, but sometimes we need to kind of speak that language better.
And sell ourselves, sell what we do. Problem solvers. I don't know, it's just, yes?
I have something to say on this. Like when we say that design is a dirty word, we are thinking because we are designers. What if we say doctor is a dirty word? What if doctors asked us, what do you think doctor is all about? And we say lifesavers, someone who prescribes medicines and all that. But then again, if we ask doctors what they think actually doctor is all about, they are going to give that side of the list. So we are just thinking it's a dirty word because we are getting targeted here, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's interesting how many people were interested in this talk as well. And it's also, what was I going to say? It's also, you know, labeling what's on the tin versus trying to be empathetic and do what we do as designers and understanding our end users and choosing a word that's meaningful to them, not to us. But I mean, you're right that doctors is what they do and designers is what we do. But yeah, so I just constantly find that for us, when people hear design, they instantly think this right-hand column and they don't think of the left-hand column there. And I'd like to address that, and that's why I did this talk. And yeah, interested to hear your views. So thank you. Yes.
So is it the clarification that comes before the context of like use it as an architectural designer or a graphic designer? Like we've sort of got UX and product, and when you say those things, people maybe are more likely to give you that second side of the list. Like we assume that discovery and research comes with UX design, but if you just say design, a lot of people's tendency is to jump to graphic design because that was sort of major thing everyone knows, the more common form of design.
Yeah. So UX, you're saying just call it UX design.
I don't know if it solves all the problems, but I think it shifts people's perspective to see that second side of the list.
If they understand UX design,
they
yeah.
have to explain that, but maybe it's like product, but product is equally as important. But I think it shifts them closer to what you're expecting.
Yeah.
So I think design itself, like what you mentioned, design is to do something with intent, right? That's it. All of these things on the left, it's like building that intent. So I think it's very fine to call it design, but I think as mentioned here, I really like the doctor analogy. You have ophthalmologists, you have surgeons, you have very specific names for each of all of those different disciplines. And design is so expansive. And I think having that granularity is a good thing. Maybe that's the solution. Destroying the word design. I think it's useful.
I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying it's misleading or can be misleading. Yeah, but I love that. That's great. Thanks. You're next.
So my sister has just finished her law degree. Before she studied, everyone has an idea of what a lawyer is. But being a lawyer is very multifaceted. Like everyone, when they think lawyer, they think courthouse, they think criminal, they think, that sort of thing, divorce lawyer. But she's actually thinking of going into migration law, which is a very specific type of law. So I think we need to embrace the word designer because all industries have perceptions about them. Doesn't mean you throw away the word, if that makes any sense. It just means that you redefine what the word means.
Love it. Jamie?
Maybe we need to take more care in educating others, and rather than using designer as a catch-all, we take more care in applying ourselves what we actually are doing for that specific job, whether you are a visual designer or doing design research. So it's helping our audience understand more about what we are doing as designers.
Yeah, I think it's about visibility. Like, if everyone's only ever seeing the pretty pictures, then of course they're going to jump to the conclusion that that's what your role is. But if you expose them and include them in all of the other parts of the job, then they'll have a much better idea about what the designer is.
Yeah, we do. And the ones that came up with this list were mainly, in our squad at least, were the ones that hadn't worked with me. Yeah.
You could look at it as a designer, look at the problem of why people don't understand what design is. Like, we could look at it from a sales perspective, as that maybe trying to sell me something that is design. You don't understand what design is, but you're not going to go and sell, we're going to sell you the design package. You're going to tell them we have to do discovery, we have to do some research, and that doesn't matter what's called is design or not in the end. Or you look at from the context perspective of like, yeah, only my guys only understand that design, UI design, but like maybe they don't need to understand more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We just find when we say the word design, I think, oh no, you don't need pretty pictures, or not yet, at least. When you need to understand the problems. Yes.
Like with all of the conversation, really think about what's the origin of the word design, which comes from the Latin designare, which means to designate something. And if we zoom out and we understand like the short amount of time that design has been in the industry, that starts with Industrial Revolution, it starts with the Bauhaus, and then it kind of like shrinks to the last 20 years, maybe 10 years, and then we start to figure out that maybe someone where they also talk the granularity in which our craft is just like getting, because it also relates to technology, right? And it relates to social sciences. It relates to so many things that we are putting in our backpack, or we are putting in ourselves as new ways of it was like an evolution of the practice. So I could believe that someone sees design as graphic design, product design in the head of people is just like industrial design, but then we're talking about product design and digital product design and service design. So I could really put myself out there and understand like, all right, what do you actually mean? What's the value you're bringing to me if I hire you? Because I could understand the value of a lawyer, because I've always had in my head that lawyers bring this value. What does a service designer bring to the table? Like not the table, but what do you bring, like to the organization? If my organization doesn't have the space for you yet, right? Because that diagram is a very balanced one when you have the organization that allows it to thrive. If you don't have that, if, for example, it's a very deep in technology, you have very, small business and people, it's actually shrinking. Your space there is going to be very, very small. So we could not understand, or we cannot really see just the word by itself. We need to see where we bring value and the context of the organization that we're there.
Thank you. Great. No, it's really good. Well, it's obviously unanimous that everyone likes the word design here generally, but I would still put it back to, is this the users? We need to empathise. Anyway, go on. Yeah, sorry.
I think I do agree. I'm sort of a bit hard up. I think it is a dirty word, but I also think that because we're design industry has sort of drastically been changing for the last sort of 20 years. Like, it's always been changing, like since the sort of the 1950s, and was sort of a boom in terms of products and the way products are designed, that manufacturing sense, and then throughout history, how design has changed from that sort of 1950s sort of moment. But I think currently, with this sort of incoming sort of service design, UI design, and all that sort of area of design, I think it's become unclear because it is still quite new. Like, it's been around for a while, but what the good thing is, though, I think as time progresses, I think sort of big corporations and big organisations are sort of understanding the value of sort of service design and UI design coming in. So I think, yes, it's still very unclear like what design is to the sort of the ordinary person who is in the design industry, but I think as time progresses and the more sort of big organisations and other such organisations bring in designers, I think the understanding of what we do will sort of be a bit more clear over time. That's kind of how I see it. But yeah, currently it is quite like an ambiguous kind of, you know, I get all the time like, what is service design and what is industrial design? Like, that's what you say you do. Like, what is that? You know, do you just do like take an Australian drawing? Like, it's like 5% of what I do. But
Yeah.
You know.
All right, how are we going? All right for time, I guess. So.
I think one of the things I think people have such thoughts on what design is and why there's so much, I suppose, confusion because everyone thinks they can design. Everyone can get a piece of paper and a crayon and draw something at its most simple level, and therefore that I think has a very tangible impact on people's view when they hear the word design, and therefore go straight to pretty decks, pretty pictures, things like that, and logos, very traditional stuff, right? So I don't know if we'll ever be able to change that because crayons and paper aren't going away anytime soon, and maybe that's not the objective either. But I do think, following on what you were saying before, it's probably less about us trying to tell them what we do in our own words, and probably more about translating what we do in words they understand. So we can harp on about service design and, you know, connecting systems and all this sort of stuff, but if the message isn't really landing in a way that shows value and meaning to the business stakeholders or whatever it may be, then it's not going to solve the problem. So instead of saying, you know, like if we're trying to articulate value, it's got to be like to a business stakeholder or an organization in general. It's got to be grounded in the business problem that it's going to be solving at its core, at least as a start. And then going from there, we can talk about disciplines and nuances of how design breaks that particular problem thing that we would solve into its various disciplines. So yeah, instead of saying like, oh, we can design your purchasing flow, maybe the narrative to them is more interesting to someone who's head of sales is something like, we can help drive more acquisition and activation.
Yeah, definitely in the messaging, how we communicate it. We've had instances though where you're using the word design, you don't get a seat at the table because they do think it's that. But yeah, once you do and you can explain the value, it's a different story. And you know, hence the whole
We're doing all right. I'm sort of gravitating up here because we've got time for one more comment. Go.
But the way I see it is that design nowadays, design thinking came around as well, is divided between the design crafts, which are the traditional ones that we've built in the past century, industrial design, graphic design, fashion design, architectural design, whatever, because they produce physical products. They're crafts, and they are related to our senses. They tend to be tangible, and aesthetics tends to play an important role in them. On the other hand, but that's not the only thing that designers have always done during that century. Yes, our out product has been physical things, tangible things, but behind that, there have been some foundational principles of how we work. And one of them is that we approach problems in a human-centered way, and we empathize. Another one is that we solve problems using creativity, which is something that businesses didn't use before to solve their own problems. That's how design thinking has been getting to be used nowadays by anyone, and anyone can become, you call it a designer, design thinker, whatever you want to call it, but somebody that can use these foundational principles that we've traditionally used always to create crafts or, let's say, tangible outcomes to be able to produce any other kind of solution, because creativity and human-centeredness, and in my world, systems thinking together were not things that were used to solve problems of any other kind.
What a perfect place to end it.
yes.
I love it when a basic conversation turns into a therapy session. How are people feeling? Right?
Well, I hope you got something out of it and
Yeah.
provoked you. That was very interesting, and really got something out of myself. So thank you.
Yeah, give Matt a round of applause.